Hello and welcome to the Uprising Show. This is our second recording for 2025, and we have a very interesting guest, Dr. Hal. Welcome to the show. Give a brief introduction about yourself.
Hey, I'm Dr. Hal with Game Day Men's Health. Background in finance. 20 years ago, went off to med school. Was in the hospital setting and the clinic setting for years, and then decided to shift over into concierge medicine. Just having a lot of fun doing it. So,
Yeah, this is you have a very interesting profile. We'll go and dig into that, but let's go back in the time. Your story spans from Brooklyn to Miami with stops in India, Chicago, and beyond. So let's go back in time and tell me where you were born and raised. And did you always want to be a doctor? Is either of your parents a doctor?
yeah. So I mean, I was born in India in Hyderabad. We never actually lived there. I was born on vacation. My mom and dad would insist on going back to the home country to have their children. But we were living in Saudi Arabia at that time. So I lived in Saudi Arabia until I was about 6 years old. Then we moved to the United States in 1986, and I was in New York, in Brooklyn, New York. So we lived there till about 2012, 2013, I would say, right around Hurricane Sandy. And then we moved to Chicago. In between, I went off to med school and then came back and did my residency in Chicago. My mom and dad had moved there with us as well. My brothers are there, and my sister stayed in New York. My other sister went to Texas, and then came down to Miami. But first I went to Springfield, Illinois, in Lincoln, Illinois. I worked there for a couple of years in rural medicine while my wife was finishing residency. And then we came down to Miami, and I was with HCA and Vision for a few months, and then with another Medicare Advantage plan as their medical director, regional medical director, then acting chief medical officer. Did that for about 4 years. Had a lot of fun, made a lot of contacts, and then shifted over into the concierge men's health space.
And was this on the cards from the beginning? You always want to be a doctor from the childhood, and either it's a doctor?
Neither one of my mom and mom was a nurse, and then she was a psych nurse, and then went to school nursing towards the end of her career. Dad was in healthcare administration. Both my parents have multiple degrees. I think the last count, between mom and dad, I think there was a half dozen degrees. So, they definitely taught us discipline, hard work. When I was in finance, they were like, "That's great. Go be a doctor like a good Indian boy." So,
It's funny.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's funny. Even after going and being in the Wall Street, you still had to become a doctor.
Yeah, but it's an honorable profession. That's what they call it.
Yeah. Yeah, let's talk about this transition from being a stockbroker on Wall Street to becoming obviously an award-winning physician. Talk through this journey. What inspired you to, do that leap in the beginning?
I don't know. My wife sometimes tells me maybe you just get bored of things. So, and I always have multiple projects going at the same time. As I'm working on one, I've already got something brewing, and for the next project on the next project. We only have a finite amount of time here, and then I want to make the most of it. Want to make sure that I leave a legacy for my son. Wall Street was great. I started as a retail stockbroker, made it up to VP, and then went off to med school. It was, fast paced. It was a lot of fun, a lot of work. We worked just as much as you do in medicine. I think some days, if there's like live deals going on, you might work even more. So it's definitely not something that I took lightly. And I knew what I was getting into. I have friends who are in medicine, some family who's in medicine, and it's difficult. It was definitely worth it though. So
They say that the first career is the job, the second one is a professional or the career, and
right.
third one is the legacy. So, and some people get lucky in the second they get to the legacy, but typically that's the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So yeah, I lived in New York, and I was very close and been to Brooklyn many times. So Brooklyn is a melting pot of cultures and opportunities. Is there something from your time in Brooklyn that you cherish to this day?
Um, so I mean, Brooklyn. I grew up in Brooklyn when Brooklyn was Brooklyn. Not the Brooklyn that it is today, where you have arts and crafts at every corner, and everyone gentrified, and you have $5,000 studios, and it wasn't that way. It was a lot more rough and tumble. You had to keep your wits about you, and then being an immigrant Indian kid growing up in Brooklyn definitely took some hits, and that sort of, you heard my kid screaming in the background. But it definitely, the diversity, the energy that's in Brooklyn is unmatched. I don't tell people I'm from New York. I tell people I'm from Brooklyn, so it's something that, I think most people from Brooklyn can relate to, or if you've ever been to Brooklyn, you feel that energy,
Yeah. Yeah. Brooklyn is a special place. And like you said, yeah, now very different.
Yeah.
Even the 8 years that I spent in New York, I saw it change very quickly. So that's the way it is. Uh, all right. So now, you have taken an insurance-free direct-to-patient approach in your, especially career as a physician. Again, why did you choose this model, and how has it resonated with your patient? And I guess, what was the turning point? You're like, this is the route I'm going to go ahead with.
Yeah. As a doctor, the only thing that I should really care about is if I can take care of a patient, how to take care of that patient. I don't want to be concerned with insurance, what the reimbursement level is going to be, if there's going to be a pre-authorization, if I need to speak to a clinical reviewer that's never seen the patient, all those things that come up with insurance-based practices that just don't make sense anymore. And I think we've confused health insurance with health care, and it's just not that way. But what you have is health insurance companies practicing healthcare, and you've just got to take that out. I think there was an article that came out recently that between 1/5 and 1/4 of the claims submitted are rejected by the major insurance companies, and that is insanity to me, because it's a doctor that's making a decision for a patient, and then an administrator, a non-clinical person who's saying, well, this isn't covered by your insurance, or this isn't approved by your insurance, and then someone who's a clinical reviewer, it may or may not be an MD. A lot of times it isn't. A lot of times it's not even in the same specialty, and they're making decisions for a patient when the doctor and patient have already decided on a plan of care. And it really, I think you see a lot of that frustration in healthcare. People come in and they're like, well, where's this copay coming from? Where's this co-insurance coming from? And no one reads their contracts. No one knows exactly what's going on there. All they know is that they're sick, they need help. And I think you should just remove everything in between the doctor and the patient and just leave it. They'll leave it that way. And that'll be the purest form of medicine. It was, I don't want to say it was born out of frustration, but it was definitely born out of experience in corporate medicine. I came from some spectacular companies with amazing coworkers and colleagues, and they had frustration as well, working in that corporate model. And I think this allows for a lot more transparency. In the early days of medicine, it was you hung up your shingle, you got paid in whatever, chickens, eggs, you took care of your patient. That's it. And that's what I think we need to get back to. And if you look at overall, the healthcare expenditure in the United States is approaching $5 trillion this year. That number it's mind boggling. I'm talking 20% plus of the GDP. And we're going faster and faster into debt. And only 8% of that is directly attributed to physicians. So where's all the other money go? And why is it going there? There's a 4,000% increase in administration costs in the last, 20, 30 years. And the physicians are leaving. Physicians are tired. They're taking their ball and they're going home. And, there's so many of us retiring. There's so many of us looking for non-clinical careers. You see the frustration. I hang out with tons of physicians. My wife is a physician. She works at an academic center. Same thing. She's working 12 hours a day. And I asked her, why is it that it's okay for you to work that 12 hours a day, but then if you ask someone who's non-clinical, you've got to stay after you're done with your work. I also now need you to handle the paperwork behind the work that happens. You would have a riot. You would have a mutiny on your hands if it was any other career except for medicine. Meanwhile, we continue to take the abuse and take the, who suffers? it's not just the physician, it's the patient, because you're not able to give them the care that they need. So that's where it kind of came from. I always say, if an insurance-based practice has to see approximately 20, 25 patients just to keep the lights on, my practice, and I make this joke all the time, that if I saw 25 patients in my practice in the game day men's health practices, my staff would quit, because we allow for 45 minutes to an hour. You're really getting deep in with the patient, where you know everything about them. You're really reviewing their history. You're really doing an exam. You're really sort of creating a plan that you can't do anymore in insurance-free practices. You have 15 minutes, and then you've got a chart for 30 minutes for that 15-minute visit. So it's an untenable situation. So that's where it came from.
What would you think is a possible solution to this specific problem? I'm sure you've given thought a million zillion times.
Direct pay. If you look at the average, the average deductible and premiums and all that added up for you've got how many kids? Two kids. So 2 kids and a wife. And take a look at your deductible and take a look at your premiums. I guarantee you're paying $20,000 to $50,000 a year in all of that. Whether it's yourself or your employer or your wife's employer that's putting in, someone's paying for it, and it's going to be between $20,000 and $50,000 a year. Now, people look at these concierge models and they say, well, you're charging all this money. Even if, let's say I charged $1,000 a month for a patient to come see me, and that's way beyond what we do charge some of the patients, depending on what they qualify for. You're still not approaching anywhere near the premiums that you would with health insurance. So I think something like 80-90% of procedures in the United States don't even meet the deductible. So people are paying for it out of pocket anyway. So it just, we need to get away from that. Health insurance should be like car insurance, where if you have a catastrophe, if you need to be in the hospital, things like that, you're in the ICU, that's when it should kick in. But primary care, regular checkups, care in clinics, that should be cash-based.
Yeah. And there is certainly a wave and I'm going to speak from the patient side. At least in the last, I would say for 3 to 5 years, there is at least this wave of patients getting more and more, at least realizing that preventative care is more of a thing they want, and they don't get it from the existing system. It's still very reactive. It's still very sick care system. So when you get sick, only then you get, and even then it's very hard to get appointments despite paying all these premiums in the world you pay it. So automatically there is this thing happening that now patients are getting okay with the idea of, you know what, I will have my direct membership-based physician where actually I handle or I at least have control over my preventative health. And yeah, if things get worse, sure, I'll go to my hospital and everything. But at the end, patients paying still more because now they're paying on top of what they're paying for the insurances and premium. But do you see the same on your side? In my mind, this is how it's going to be for now, but this is never accessible this way or affordable in that way. And then eventually something will break on one side or another side to like decouple, and how this will mature, the market will mature and how it will happen. But at least the wave that I'm seeing is, first of all, patients in the country, especially the middle class and over, is getting comfortable with this idea of, yes, preventative care is in our control, and that needs to be worked with this membership models with physicians like you. And that's the best way to get to it and keep this as almost like the car insurance, the hospital for the thing.
Correct. I mean, that's how that's how it should be set up. That's honestly how I believe, because you can't have administrators doling out care. It's got to be between the doctor and the patient. So
yeah. Okay. And when exactly with what year you started moving into this model, and how long you've been doing this for now?
So in 2023, May of 2023, I left corporate medicine. And then started looking for different opportunities. I was looking at medical directorships, and I have a venture capital fund that I was planning on growing. A terrible time to raise money at that time. It still is, I think, with the interest rates the way they are. But I found Game Day Men's Health. It's a franchise model. It's been around since 2018. Evan Miller, he's the founder and the CEO, PhD, really good friend of mine. Just a good, kind-hearted soul. Started this because he also had the same situation where he was looking for something. Something was off. He was lacking energy, whether it was like libido issues or men's performance issues. Something was off, and everywhere he went, it was either these like shady men's health clinics, or there just wasn't any availability. Or you would go to your PCP's office, and they don't have the time to spend to figure things out that are wrong in men's health. Or you go to urology and endocrinology, and you might see them if you ask for an appointment today. You'll see them in 3 to 6 months, possibly, and they can't bring you in the amount of times that we do. So he created it. He created the model where guys can come in, they feel comfortable, they're in and out if they need to be, or they can spend 45 minutes in there. We have complex labs in-house, so we're able to do labs there. We partner with, the largest pharmacies in the country. And we're able to provide direct care, and it's cash pay only. We don't take any insurance, so we don't have to deal with any of that, the bureaucracy that comes with it. We follow guidelines. We follow American Urological Association guidelines. I always say, as an internist, I stay in my lane. I've learned quite a bit about men's health over the last few years, and by practicing it as well. And then what I know as an internist, but then there's a limit to my scope. And when I get out of that scope, I've got urology on speed dial, and I've got endocrinology on speed dial, and both at academic centers, local guys that I can pick up the phone and be like, hey, I have a patient here that is out of my scope as a men's health internist. And I can send them over to that. So that's sort of the difference between some of these places that had popped up over the last 10, 15 years that are TRT shops, like just you go in there and they're giving out testosterone to everybody. And if you look at like some of the news that was out there from the Wall Street Journal about these clinics discussing risks or really getting in to share decision making, pushing different things. If you read, we've got, I think, 700-800 reviews between my 3 clinics in Weston, Boca, and Aventura. And the overwhelming theme there is we're not pushy. There's no selling going on there. It's shared decision making. It's presenting a solution to a possible problem, and you go from there. I think patients are really recognizing that the Game Day model versus some of these other places, which might be a med spa that is trying to push for revenue, or if you look at even some of the big well-known med spa that have gotten even private equity involvement, where they've got a ton of money that's coming from outside. You look at these places and they really focus on sales. That's their even on their Instagram pages, they talk about this great sales team that they built, this sales training team that they built. I'm like, why is sales even involved in healthcare? So it should never be. Some of the models also are, you speak to the clinician and then you come outside and there's a guy with some title that doesn't make any sense because he's not certified or has a degree in anything. It's just one of these like made up wellness experts or wellness specialists or whatever. And that's the guy that's going to sit there with you with a price list and sell you all the products that they have there that you need all of a sudden. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. You speak to your clinician, you make a decision with your clinician, and your clinician's a board certified clinician, whether it's a doctor, a PA, nurse practitioner. And they're all under my supervision. I'm actually on staff to see patients at our clinics as well. So that's the difference, I think. And patients are a lot smarter than we think. And they start to see the difference between what we're doing and what they're coming from or what they've seen out there. And it's just it's night and day. It really is.
You touched upon this a little bit. Not to name any company here, but it's almost like let's say like the gym or the fitness industry model, where salesperson who kind of like becomes their, whatever they call it, educator and whatever. That's their job is to do sales, right? That's what it is. And that's kind of the model that you were saying, like in med spas, really brag about it, like
Yeah.
in their marketing, which is crazy, first of all.
Yeah.
And
And this is the marketing that they're putting out to patients. So like, I wonder how patients feel that, you're speaking with possibly, a clinician, and then the clinician has nothing to do with the purchase or the sale of the product that they're selling. It just, I'm not a fan. So I'm, I'm a rabid patient advocate. And that's something that, my wife, my business partners, even the founder of Game Day sometimes tells me, is like, you're pretty passionate about this stuff. And I'm like, well, yeah, because I don't want to see people get hurt. I don't want to see people, being sold things that they don't necessarily need. We send away more patients than we sign up. And, and sometimes I'll get like super young guys in there that are shopping for stuff. And I had this one patient who was, I think, 18 or 19 years old, and he came in and he was obviously testosterone shopping. And I told him, hey, I can look up whether you purchase testosterone or you're prescribed testosterone. If I can look it up on the state prescription monitoring program. And if you go somewhere else and get testosterone, I'm going to call your parents. So obviously I was joking, but we want to put the fear of God in some of these patients that don't realize what they don't realize either. So
yeah, wow. It is. I guess the question is, Game Day. What in your thinking sets it apart from the traditional healthcare clinics? What's like? What really was your outside of discovering with the founder and what they were trying to build? What sets them apart, and what was your key hook to them that this is the company you want to associate yourself with?
So I mean, right now it's the largest men's health network in the country. When I started, there was just a handful of clinics. We were the first to open on the East Coast. We were the fastest to open in the history of the company. Still hold that record, even though it's almost 300 clinics, brick and mortar, that are open, and there's another 1,000 coming online. Evan Miller he's a visionary, but he's also someone who takes advice from his medical team. He's got, a group of doctors, including myself, that he's surrounded himself with, all board certified, all with, a decade plus of experience, some 20, 30 plus years of experience. And these are folks that sit on the medical advisory board, the experts, the medical experts board. And he takes the input very, very seriously. We also have 300 plus medical directors across the country that are in constant contact, plus the other, 300 plus clinicians that are working together, also in constant contact. We stay up to date on the guidelines. No one's practicing in a vacuum. There's no, what one Game Day is doing is, it should be very, very similar to what another Game Day is doing. We follow the same guidelines. We're playing the same sandbox. There's no cowboy stuff happening here that you might see at some of these other places. So that was something that really helps me sleep at night, because I'm licensed now, I think, in 10 states, with another handful coming every few months or so when I decide to sit down and do the applications. But they're pristine medical licenses. My record is completely clean. You can Google me and you'll find my entire resume is out there for anybody to see. State licenses, everything is all open and available. Some of these other places, you might Google the people and you'll find that they're not licensed in anything or certified in anything. They're just they're out there throwing out videos and educating the public, but they're not medical in any way, shape, or form. So that's the difference, I think. We really leaned into the physician-led medical practice rather than it being a med spa or a low T shop or something like that.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I totally resonate with this because as I am building my company, which is pretty much a media network, an initial conversation coming from a venture-backed company background, it's always like, hey, do you create this scalable business model from day one? You need to have, don't work with the providers. It's like too much time consumed there, and work with company. That's where the money is. And I was saying like to everyone, it's like, you know what? I don't see the ecosystem coming together if we take the providers out. This is not a system. Then we are just bubble. outside of the ecosystem, right?
Yeah.
And even last week, I had this conversation with someone, and I was like, yeah, my I am building a network. I mean, my vision is to have providers and companies all together through this media platform, and that's where the collaborations will start happening more better. And that's the vision. I can't take out especially providers out of this node and then it fails everything. This is like a very short view if that's how you
How do you how do you do healthcare without the clinicians?
exactly. Yeah, exactly. That's the voices. I mean, and not only that, I mean, the proof points is all these venture backed companies, like without again naming them, they just were running a drug rag.
Yeah. I mean, there was some spectacular implosions over the last like 5 years that we saw, and we're going to continue to see that because the issue is you don't know what you don't know, right? So if you ask me something about neurosurgery, I'm not going to know. How can I opine? How can I even offer an opinion to something that I have no idea about? So you have a lot of folks that are non-clinical in clinical spaces that have opinions, and they have opinions without having enough knowledge to have an opinion. And I think, as a doctor, what I find is the best clinicians are usually the ones that recognize what they don't know, and the ones that are willing to ask and learn and all that. And I think you'll find the same thing with with business people, with administrators and non-clinical people, the ones that understand that it's a collaborative effort. We can't do our job without them. They can't do their job without us. And you work together and you work as a team, and that's what it's gonna take. I get asked all the time about scale. How do you scale this? How do you scale that? And I'm like, it's healthcare. It's not. We're not making widgets where I can increase the speed of the machine. You know what I mean? There's a finite amount of energy that you can squeeze out of a clinician, and there's a lot of deep challenges over the last few years of moral injury that the clinicians have faced. At one point we were heroes, and then we were maligned, and people were cheering for us from the rooftops, and then it was you were pushing stuff onto us. Or I always make this joke. I'm still waiting for my check from Pfizer. So we're just practicing medicine. That's it. It's not there's no ulterior motive here or anything like that. And the challenge is always going to be finding the right provider, finding the person that's going to understand that this is a vocation. This is not something. It's not a 9 to 5. It's not punching in, punching out. Navigating the regulations. Regulations are getting more and more complex, and we have a full-time legal team just looking at stuff for us all the time to make sure that because there's no you can't say you didn't know. That's not a defense. And I think you'll see a lot of these smaller mom and pop, or even some of these VC backed and PE backed med spas and different providers. They don't realize the amount of regulation that's in there, and they may or may not be doing things that are incorrect. I stay up at night reading just because I want to make sure that we're doing everything the right way, and then maintaining that quality, sort of aligning with game day's vision. All of that is super important. So I'm deeply involved still, on a day-to-day basis, even in the hiring, finding the right people, training. We trained, I would say, between 50 and 100 of the teams that have come through game day have come through Boca and Weston, which were selected as national training facilities because of the clinical excellence from the teams there. And it's a testament to my teams there that are just spectacular. So, the goal is just the top tier care, no compromise, and that's it. So,
how do you make sure the kind of balance right now you have of making sure you do not fall and again become that factory insurance driven where you just I have to have X number of patients in 5 minutes and that's my target for the day. How do you balance that in your especially business model? And it's an important question because it's very easy to fall into that trap when you see your unit economics or your profits, how do I make more money? And then it's just I can just see more patients probably. So tell me about that.
yeah. So it's a unique problem to being, it's a business, right? At the end of the day, it's a business. I'm a physician. My wife is a physician. We both, she has her practice. I have my own practice outside of the men's health networks. My business partners are also high powered executive sales and marketing executives with 20 plus years of experience. And they have their jobs as well. One of them actually, quit so that she could go full time with us. But her husband, my business partner, Donnie, he, he's still full time at his job. And we're lucky enough, thanks to him, that this isn't something that puts food on our table. My kid isn't, he's not going to miss a meal because I need to. So I'm able to laser focus on take care of the patient. Forget about the money. When you take care of the patient, success comes one way or the other. Whether it's going to be quicker or slower, I don't concern myself with that. It's more about let's take care of the patient and then everything else is secondary. So that's my mantra. It's always been, and I think as a clinician, I have to be that way. As a business owner, maybe not the smartest, but I'm lucky enough that I don't have to lean on that to try to, make things happen.
Okay. And any word of advice for other folks, other people in a similar model, how to make sure, keep yourself sane to your mission?
It's hard work. You just got, you gotta, you put your head down and work. I work, I left a corporate job where I was working 8, 10, 12 hours a day to owning my own business and, having my own private practice where I'm now working 16 hours a day. But I'm doing it happily and I'm having so much fun doing it at the same time because it's me, it's not like where in corporate medicine, you can push off something to somebody else or your boss tells you, hey, go handle this. And you have to go handle it. Now it's on you. Nothing happens unless you actually make it happen. So that's, it's scary, but at the same time, if you surround yourself with smart, driven people, I never want to be the smartest guy in the room. And thank God in my clinics, I'm usually not. So, you got to keep learning. I tell everyone, I read probably an hour a day. Whether it's online, book, podcast, you got anything. You got to make sure that you're reading for your industry, learning every single day, surrounding yourself with smart, driven people, and then just don't be afraid. It's because everything's going to be scary, So what's scary to me is ending up being 60 plus years old and working for a company that doesn't appreciate me. Rather build my own and show my patients and my my team members how much I appreciate them, and that's my goal. So
I think this is kind of like special in your case. I see it like because you've done a corporate career first, so there is this more appreciation of owning a business, which most physicians don't, because they go through like hospitals and then building practices, but they never worked in corporate. And so I think that works in your favor. And I also think like this is a sort of your competitive edge too, because you've seen the business side of thing on Wall Street, and now you're bringing that mix of your compassion and medicine and everything together with business. So that gives you a clear advantage. And despite that, I'm sure you still surface whole bunch of challenges while you're scaling your operations. So could you talk about a few things as you're expanding your clinics, and how did you, what are the challenges you're facing? What are the typical challenges for growth for your business as you're expanding, and what measures you're taking to overcome those obstacles?
So scaling is always going to have its own challenges with quality, right? So if you're an ice cream shop and you just make one box of ice cream a day, you can make that the best ice cream that you've ever had, and that's good, but that's it. Let's see. Now you've got to talk about how do I make that same ice cream and have it sent out to 20 different shops? Quality is going to decrease, right? If you don't stay on top of everything. So that, when we started in Weston, the clinic director there I've known for 20 years, went to med school with her. We are constant contact. We basically like together built, that clinic. All right. So now the next shop we open up, right? The next clinic we open up. And we had some challenges because we're not able to have as close an eye on that. But I'm also I'm slow to hire, quick to fire. So we made some changes very, very quickly. I have no problems pivoting when I need to, and stepping in when I have to. So that's something that, I've had to do that multiple times where, we want to make some changes because people don't align necessarily with, the quality business model, the quality healthcare model that we're providing. And yeah, you make changes quickly. And if you have to step in, you step in. And that's where the challenge is. Luckily, I'm able to. Not everyone's going to be able to. And that's where I think, some other folks may have challenges there. So.
Do you think that look, technically, there can be a non-clinical person owning a clinic, right? Which is fair in all ways. It's handled correctly. But do you see that they are going to be always disadvantaged, especially when they're scaling the business, because it's very hard to, just have that kind of mindset of quality with a non-clinical person. So is that your view, or how do you think about that?
It's, I think it works with us because, I've got, my business partners who are non-clinical, and then I've got myself and my wife who are clinical, and everyone recognizes their weaknesses and their strengths, and we play off of each other's strengths. And, if you can build a partnership like that, then it's going to work out great. And if you're an owner that's non-clinical, you have clinical leadership in your clinics. You have clinical leadership, whether, they're your partners regardless, because they have, they're the clinical folks in your organization. So lean on them and build something special together. But it requires teamwork. It requires, taking the ego out of it and understanding whose strength is what, and focus on that and don't worry about the weaknesses, and things work out.
Yeah. I happen to spend some time building an MSO model in home care. And, one of my frustrations was like we will get this clinical person involved, but as a non-clinician, we had no way of assessing what this person is really bringing in, right? You heavily rely on that, and later down the line, you discover that, this wasn't up to the mark. And so we ran into that issue, and hard ways of learning. But it's like I feel like it's never that easy. Like you have to find ways through this. And
tell you a story on that. My dad was brilliant. Absolute. Just he's my hero. The guy is like, I don't make a move without talking to dad first. And he's giving me spectacular advice. He knows, he's Superman, my dad. We're at his post-op after my dad had prostate cancer, which is also why like men's health sort of resonates with me so much. It's very personal to me. He had prostate cancer. He had prostatectomy, and we're in New York City at Columbia Pres with like the number one urologist in the country at that time. This was like 10 plus years ago, and he's post-op. He just came out of the operating room, and to me, my dad and my mom, and the urologist comes in, and my dad goes to him, "Hey, you did a great job." And the urologist looks at him and goes, "How do you know?"
Yeah.
The dad goes, "Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely. We don't know, right? I feel great, but we don't know if you did a good job or not." How does a non-clinical person make that determination? It's how that doctor made you feel. And if you have time to spend with the patient, and the patient, can recognize, hey, this is a doc that actually sounds like he knows what he's talking about. And then they go back and they ask other clinicians and other friends or whatever, and that's a legit doc. How I as a physician, how I vet other physicians is by asking their teams, like asking people around them, how's that person as a clinician? I don't necessarily ask the non-clinical people. I ask clinical people about their own team members, and you'll get a lot more insight that way. Ask their nurses, ask the people. Don't ask their bosses. Ask the people that report to them, and you'll get a real gauge as to what sort of person and what sort of clinician that clinician is.
It's funny you say that. Uh, so my wife is a nurse, and she's been into healthcare for, critical care nurse. That was her first 20 years. And something I learned from her is like, as in especially our complex health systems, like when you're dealing and you want to validate your physicians or the treatment that you're getting, this is the trick we use. The person who calls us for scheduling appointments with us, we try to set them on like going into this cross questioning of, hey, okay, like if your daughter comes to this physician, would you recommend, and like things like that, to get that exact line of questioning, just to like make sure like we're in the right hands.
Right. Yeah. Somebody I would bring my family to, that's the highest, the highest compliment you can get from someone else.
Exactly. Right. So, and it's funny you said that, because I was like, wow, this kind of, not to say it on this show, this is a hack, but that's how, you have to like, the state of our health system is such that like you have to almost be your own advocate, right? So you want to validate stuff as much as you could. So this is the kind of, we use it as like, of course, I use it because I learned from my wife, because, she's from clinical background, and something, we use it a lot in our care, but it's sad that we have to do that. But that's the way of, I guess, going around it. How you were saying, ask the nurses around them and like how their stuff, feels about them. It's funny. You do it for your, hiring and working with them, and it's for the care for the patients. Uh, cool. All right. So you have now established award-winning clinics in 3 locations now: Western, Boca Raton, and eventually.
Yeah. So we're in the Tri-County area in South Florida, Palm Beach, Broward County, and Miami-Dade.
Got it. And what's your long-term vision with, of course, game day men's health, and what markets are you eyeing for future expansion?
So, I mean, we have another 6 locations that we're probably going to bring online in the next couple of years. And they're all through South Florida. We may explore, going, a little bit further north, a little bit further west, but I always want to be able to put my finger on the pulse, and can't do that if it's too far. So
you really want to make sure that you are physically able to go there. That's
correct. Correct. Yeah. Otherwise you lose quality, right? So
yes. Okay. Makes sense. All right. And do you see this all expansion still sticking with, game stay men's health? That's kind of what your thought process is.
Yeah, I think game day is going to be 1,000+ clinics in the next 2 years. And at that point, we're already the largest, but we're going to be a behemoth at that point. And then you'll see slowly, the competitors start to fall off or go into, it's probably best that they go into other avenues, because we're going to take over.
And the physician who's going to listen to this show, what would be the easier way for them to join this ecosystem of Game Stays Clinic? How does it work?
So Game Day has medical directors. We always need more medical directors. I definitely, I think as more clinics come online, there's going to be a need for more urology focused, endocrine focused, internal medicine with men's health experience, family practice with men's health experience. Psychiatry, I think, is going to be huge as well. So those are, some of the specialties that we're always going to be looking for, whether it's in partnerships or, as medical directors or on advisory boards, things of that nature. So there's definitely plenty of opportunity coming up over the next few years. The one thing I will tell clinicians out there, there's going to be a lot of opportunities that seem like they're interesting. Just make sure you go with a physician-led, sort of a company that takes physicians seriously, not just has them there as, director or something.
Yeah, makes sense. And before we wrap up today's conversation, couple of more personal kind of questions. So you have now, successfully worn multiple hats: physician, entrepreneur, investor, leader in your space. What advice would you give to young professionals aspiring to follow similar dynamic path?
Life is going to be that way, right? Life is going to never be linear. It's there's a sine curve. There's ups and downs. My younger brother actually told me that once as well, because he was like, you're going to see when I left finance and I had to go to med school and taking out student loans versus making whatever I was making back then a lot. And so it's you see that stark difference. And that wasn't linear. That path wasn't linear. Leaving corporate medicine with golden handcuffs salary to start a startup, basically, right? That was scary. And my wife was the one who actually told me, I trust you. I believe in you, and whatever you do, you're going to be successful at. But you got to be able to just do that thing, not be spread too thin across multiple different. She sat me down once and said, "You need to start saying no to people because I say yes to everybody." And I learned that from her, that what, it's more about quality now rather than quantity. And I'm 44 years old. My baby is 14 months old. I want to spend as much time as I can with him. I'm an older dad. 95% of the time that you spend with your children are before the age of 18. So I'm trying to spend 100% of that 95% of the time. And that's my goal right now, is to raise my son, make sure that he looks at me as somebody that he's proud of, that, whatever I do in my personal and professional life, that I can hold my head up high, and that, my son will be proud of me. So that's whatever you do it well. My mom taught me this as well. She's like, what, you want to be a burger flipper? You're going to be the best goddamn burger flipper, but that you can do whatever you want, but you're going to be the best at whatever you do. So aim for that. Don't spread yourself too thin. Don't be afraid of hard work. It does slow down. It's not always like a fire hose. The first few years are going to be that way, and you're going to be a lot more tired than you expect. And then if you have a baby in the mix of it, so it's a lot, but it's also a lot of fun, and I'm building my own dream.
Very powerful. Also, I think what your mom said, that must be an Indian thing, because my grandfather told me very long ago, when life, he was like, "Hey, if you want to be the grass cutter, be the best grass cutter in the country." I was like, "Yeah, sure." Funny. All right, cool. Final question. So this is more of a fun question. Tell us about a personal thing that no one in your professional circles knows about this at the moment, and this is your chance to tell them. Could be anything that you feel is appropriate to share, but yeah, this is your chance to tell it.
So it's a little bit funny, but I'm hyper competitive. I mean, to the point where if we're playing pool volleyball, we used to have pool in the backyard. My wife would say, "Just let him win, because he's not going to stop." So she would tell our own friends out, he's not going to stop until someone is hurt, and we're playing with inflatable balls. So in that same thread, every year, we move to a very nice neighborhood. We're in the smallest house in the nice neighborhood, right? But it's a destination for Halloween. So people come from not just the neighborhood, but all the other neighborhoods around here. They close off the street, so it's just one way. There's off-duty police officers, so it's a destination Halloween location. And I set up my table outside, and every year I do research to see what that demographic is looking for in candy. And I find, the whatever's trending at that time, and I'll get those 3 to 5 candies max, and I will be the destination house in the destination location. So my wife is like, "You spend way too much time trying to be the good candy house." But for me, that's like I don't know, something I take pride in. And I want, they come back every single year, and they're like, oh, that's Alice that has, whether it was Twix one year, Kit Kat another year, but we don't have candy corn. There's not going to be bad candy when you come here. So whatever you do, do it the best of your ability. Whether it's work or fun. So
Love it, love it. This is great. All right, so I know, based on this advice, if we are playing a golf matchup, I know how to plug it out of that.
Yeah.
Let you win, or
It's not going to be good for anybody. Just let me win. That's it.
oh, that's funny. Oh, cool. Thanks for sharing. This has been great, Dr. Al. So if people, our listeners, want to get in touch with you, how can they reach out to you?
So we are we're on all the socials, GameDay_Weston, GameDay_Aventura, GameDay_Boca. I respond to, a lot of the messages that come in. GameDayMensHealth.com. And then you can look for, the location nearest you, but the ones that I own are Weston, Aventura, and Boca. So that's the quickest way probably to get a hold of me.
Awesome. We will put the links as well with all our descriptions wherever you get your shows. And this has been great. Much appreciated you sharing your journey. Thank you so much. And for our listeners, all the notes, we will put all the links. If you want to reach out to Dr. Health, feel free to reach out. You know where his locations are. And if you're a physician who wants to join GameStay Network and want to talk to Dr. Health, again, reach out. And that's the way. Thank you so much. Again, much appreciated for all the work that you're doing.